What's up, everybody? I am here with Lindsey Mathews. She is a doctor of chiropractic. She is the founder of BIRTHFIT, and I'm just going to let her jump right into that. Tell us how all this came about. How did you decide on the chiropractic path? How did BIRTHFIT come about? How did you end up in Austin, Texas at the Power Athlete Symposium? Loaded question.
Yeah, this basically took 12 years in the making and 35 for real. Like, that's how old I am now. But yeah, long story, sort of long.
We got an hour.
So start the timer.
Yep.
I'll back it up because I feel like there's like big forks in the road for everybody. And
forks are interesting, so
yeah,
go for it.
Big transitions. So I was on the path to go to medical school, and I was studying at Texas A&M University, and I took off a semester to study abroad in Africa. And I'm going down the path of answering why chiropractic.
Sure.
And, I went to Tanzania, Africa for close to like 2 months. Was studying there. We were going in and out of villages, recruiting people that we thought were like sick enough or warranted like enough medical care. And then they would then come to the clinic on the weekend. And so in the clinic, we had 2, sometimes 3 overseeing doctors, and they were Western medicine doctors. And one of the clinics, this mom brought her son to me. And so when you're working in a clinic all day, you have a translator, and then it's me and then my partner. So it's another like pre-med student.
Right.
And basically the translator's helping us both out, like going back and forth. And so somehow I got this mom and her son. He was like 6 or 7 years old. Excuse me. And he was almost like paralyzed on the left side of his body, but not quite. Like he had still motor control of definitely his arm, and he was walking, but like the arm was like the thing that was going.
Uh-huh.
And then she told me he had seizures. I was like, okay, well, me being super early pre-med, I was like, I don't know what to do with this.
Right.
And the overseeing doc wanted to prescribe like a sedative. Basically, that was his solution to the problem of seizures. It didn't have a solution to like the paralyzation or like paralysis that was happening on the left side of his body. And something just struck me, and I thought in that moment, I was like, why are we going to give something to this 6-7-year-old kid to knock him out whenever he has these seizures? And then when we're gone, that prescription's going to run out. They're not going to have that prescription anymore. And then he's going to be basically dependent on his mom again. And she's not going to know what to do. And, she was asking if he was possessed or what was,
Right.
Why did this happen? And she has other kids, somewhere around 4 or 5 other kids. They have to basically work in the field, make life happen.
Right.
So I was like, I just started crying, and, I'm like, I can't do this. I don't want to be a doctor anymore. So I took her and her son outside, and the translator, I basically said, I don't know what the solution is here, but this is what the doc wants to do. You can take the prescription if you want, but what I told her then was like, there's nothing wrong like with your son's soul or his spirit. He's still the same person like he was born as.
Right.
Something happened where he lost use of the left side of his body, and then seizures probably a result. And the thing that I found out later was like bacterial meningitis was really common, and sometimes the effects happen after that.
Right.
So she didn't end up taking the medication, which was interesting. And we just discussed like being safe whenever he had seizures. And, this was pre-chiropractic and starting to use the left side of his body, just trying to. And see
do any kind of strength training or something?
What would happen.
Right.
Yeah. So that happened. And, there's no cell phones at this time. And I go to find a calling card and call my stepdad. I'm like, I'm not going to medical school. Like, count that out. Like, this is too hard for me. And, basically my stepdad and my mom at the time, both of them were still together, and they said, you're an adult, you're over 18, you got to figure out what you're going to do in life. So went home, waited tables, saved a bunch of money, applied, looked at different alternative or holistic alternative routes. Because I was like, I want to heal. And that's, what appealed to me about medical school is like, I want to help people. And, I almost went to Ayurvedic medicine, like that route. I almost went acupuncture, and then something about chiropractic stuck out to me. And I shadowed one and applied and got in and picked the one in Los Angeles because it was the furthest away from where I grew up.
Where did you grow up?
Down the street, basically. Here, New Braunfels, Texas.
Right. So the big schools you got are in, you got one in LA, Iowa. And then there's a couple others like in the southeast.
There's Florida, and then there's a really good school in San Jose.
Okay.
I chose the one in LA, which is not entirely philosophy driven.
Yeah.
But it was a great school. I chose that one because it was Los Angeles, and for some reason I was like, I'm going to live in Los Angeles someday in my life.
I think there's something really. There's a few cities that you go to and there's something tied to it, right? Like when you're in New York or when I'm in New York.
I love New York, yeah.
I feel like anything is possible. Vegas is very much I feel lucky, I feel good. I feel like it's hard for me to feel bad in Vegas. Like I like that town. Give me 2 or 3 days there and get me the hell out of there.
Yeah, I'm like 3 days? That's the limit.
Well, that's counting landing at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, going to a show or going to a dinner. And then the next night's going hard and the next day is going home. But Vegas has that feel, but LA kind of has this success meets Bohemia meets.
It's like romantic fun to me.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was. And I was like, I'm going to go there because I always felt like, even though like I loved Texas and I loved A&M and I loved growing up in New Braunfels, like one of the funnest cities, like especially in the summer, like definitely go take a tube and float down the river and like have a day of it.
Yeah.
But, I always felt like I was like, I stick out. Like I got to figure out like who I am and where I fit in and who I want to show up as in this world. And I just didn't know, especially growing up at that time. So yeah, I ended up in chiropractic school and enjoyed myself probably a little too much the first year in Los Angeles.
I think everybody's allowed that write-off, So I am glad that you clarified about your motivation as far as medicine and helping people. I know several doctors that I know don't love being doctors. They just love the paycheck.
Yeah.
And they're success-driven students.
Yeah.
They were successful athletes, and this is one of those things. Like, why would I take this job where I make X amount of dollars a year when I can take this job and basically live a life of luxury and excess? So,
and not have to worry about making ends meet.
Right.
And it's so funny. It's funny that you say that because I remember my mom sitting me down and being like, this is what chiropractors make and this is what orthopedic surgeons make. And are you sure you want to go this route?
Yeah.
And I was just like, why would I, like, it never made sense to me to get stuck in something I don't love, which is, another thing that my sister would always say. She's 2 years younger than me. She's like, you'll figure out how to make money one day because you have to.
Yeah.
But it won't be your driver, your motivation.
I think it's pretty cool that, you stuck with it, just went in a different field. Again, those same guys that are medical doctors, they kind of turn their nose up to the chiropractic community.
Oh yeah.
I've had the benefit of both. I know there's been some controversy around Joe Rogan for dismissing chiropractic and things like that. And I agree with him on a lot of things, or at least I think he gives you a fair play chance to take information and digest it in a way that you can look into it further. And that's just one, because I will tell you, I've been to some chiropractors where I left very underwhelmed.
Me too.
And then I've been to some really great chiropractors. So that's my next question. Are you a good chiropractor? I'm kidding.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on this. Like, I actually haven't got around to listening to the whole episode.
Yeah.
Because, Rogan's podcasts can be forever long.
Yeah.
But I love him and what he does and what he's about in this world. And you're exactly right. Like, he questions things and provides a platform, and it's beautiful. I always start with, like, there's good chiropractors and there's bad chiropractors.
That's
Just
true.
like,
Anything.
yes. Dentists, medical doctors, probably the server at the restaurant downstairs, So you have to find somebody that vibes with you. And, for me, the older I get and the more like conscious I am around business, going to go with somebody that they have like values and a philosophy, and they come from somewhere. So if you have a chiropractor that just does it to do it, same with a doctor, like for the paycheck, it's like, that's not the person I'm going to go to.
Right.
I would say that, in the chiropractic world, I'll give you this little spiel. There's straights and mixers. Okay. And it's within the chiropractic world that they create this division, which obviously does nothing to advance the profession.
Sure.
Straights are labeled as the ones that, are philosophy driven. They believe in the power that made the body heals the body. And they're usually the ones that just adjust, like just do the cracks, Yeah. Where the mixers are the ones that may not be so philosophy driven. And they would use like TENS units, like other modalities. They'd incorporate that into their practices. But then, I was going through school and I vibed so much with the chiropractic philosophy, and like top down, inside out, like the human body is phenomenal, like
it does a pretty good job of fixing itself, right?
Yeah. And even given the opportunity, like to lift crazy weights, to run like crazy amounts of endurance races, just, it's so resilient. Yeah. And, then speaking of the female body, like, holy shit, magic. Yeah. But anyways, so I vibed more with the philosophy of like, the body is amazing and it's smarter and more magical than we could, put down on pen and paper. But then I got into, throughout chiropractic school, I interned and practiced a lot at the training center in Chula Vista, and then with the sports rehab facility in Santa Monica. And they started incorporating, like recovery tools like Normatec and Game Ready, like cryotherapy, hyperbaric chamber stuff. Like, and I was exposed to that, and I was like, well, this shit makes sense too, And then, a little bit further, I started doing energy healing, taking NLP courses, and really like just stepping out of the like manual, like hands-on therapy world, and like incorporating more of like mind, body, soul, extra recovery stuff. So if you were a chiropractor and you were on the outside, you would see me and you would probably label me as a mixer. Right. But then I'm somebody on the inside of the chiropractic field who vibes with the straights. Yeah. So, one thing I say within BIRTHFIT, because probably like 40% of our regional directors are chiropractors, but they're all so different. Yeah. And so, one thing I have to tell all of them before they even join is like, we don't separate. We don't use the term straights and mixers. Like, we're all here because we believe in the BIRTHFIT philosophy and the power of the body. And that's as simple as that. Right.
So you talked about I won't say infighting, but at least the in division, right? Yeah. And I noticed that too, because she and I have talked, and just for those that are listening, Ingrid is sitting here in the room, Ingrid Markham. She's sitting here just doing some work on her laptop, but, we've talked about the mental health aspect of things. So it's like you've got the orthopedics and the general physicians here. You've got mental health in its own division, and you've got the chiropractic, the alternative medicines in this area. why aren't these people talking to each other?
Dude, if everybody would talk and get like on the same team for the patient or for the client, everything would progress so much faster. I think the Western medicine approach is a very mechanistic approach. Like you just said, like boxes over here and here and here. And then like Eastern medicine is very vitalistic, looks at the body as a whole, what's out of balance, out of symmetry sort of thing. And that's the approach that I would take with my clients or my patients, whatever you want to call them.
Friends.
Yeah.
They're my friends.
So like when they'd come in and they would say, my left hip hurts. I'm like, okay, let's lay down on the table, face down. And I would give them time just to breathe face down. I would palpate their spine, check the length of their legs, and balance their body. Like I wasn't going straight towards the pain source.
Right.
And that was my approach. I think, we're, especially in America, we're very much, and I shared this yesterday in my talk, very dominated by the masculine energy.
Yeah.
So it's only natural to
Can you feel it in here right now?
Yeah.
Because I'm a pretty masculine dude, so no. Yeah, I get it.
But like it's needed for structure and discipline and, making shit happen. Mm-hmm. But the feminine energy is it's the creative force. It's the matrix of life. It's where, like rest and rejuvenation can happen. And I think when we have that mechanistic approach, it's like, okay, what 1 + 1 = 2,
right.
Or like they try to make a supplement that's the exact same as, a hormone or something in our body. Mm-hmm. And it's never going to mimic what the body does and how it interacts with the body,
Well, I get it, and I think very much in the same light of having those boxes checked, with the fields of medicine and whatnot. I think it happens very, very often with the masculine and feminine. Mm-hmm. We're all the same, to 97%. Well, there's areas of gray, right?
Yeah, totally.
If you look at terms of sexuality, if you look at terms of sex, if you look at all these things, we're having more discussions in 2018 than ever. And I think that's what we're finding is that, okay, is this physical? Is this an emotional? Mm-hmm. Is this a, psychological type thing? And I get that, but I want to challenge you on this. on the feminine side, I agree with everything you said. And on the masculine side, I agree with a lot that you said. But are those energies, are we able to be more receptive to the energies? Like, am I more receptive to the feminine energy if I open my consciousness to it? Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Yeah. And where does that go? Because then if I'm open and I'm trying to be sympathetic and I'm trying to be understanding of those things, do you think that can offer some kind of healing internally? Because I would think it would change so many things from a cellular level, right?
Yeah,
the way
absolutely.
Because I very much used to be a very aggressive, angry, no compassion whatsoever. Yeah. And then as I've gotten a little older and a little longer in the tooth, wiser. And especially after my injury, I had to get back to who I was and what that meant and all those things. And I noticed that I developed more compassion for people, and I what we call more feminine traits. Mm-hmm. And my style got a lot better. I started wearing hats like that. But, I think that I have healed more than just changing my perspective. Yeah. And I wondered if you were into any of that kind of stuff, because I can get way down. I can get way down a rabbit hole on this stuff.
Yeah.
I think. That's what it is.
I do. So, I posted probably last week or something on my Instagram about how I was experiencing, going through, whatever you want to call it. I was diagnosed in October with a stress fracture in my hip and a labrum tear. And the orthopedic surgeon is a buddy that I referred to in LA, and I was literally leaving town. I was like, I've had this hip pain, like literally pain, since the end of July, early August. And, I just want to find out what's going on the inside. I wasn't going to do anything. about it. I just wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me up. He was like, "What the hell did you do?" And I was like, "Nothing." Like,
Yeah.
and that, like, he was looking for, like, okay, what kind of weights were you lifting? Were you in any sort of competitive sports? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I haven't done anything out of the ordinary for my training.
Right.
And in fact, in July, I was like squatting heavier than I have in a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, so he labeled me, gave me that diagnosis of a stress fracture and a labrum tear. And, I believe that our emotions affect our physical body so much.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I'll go back to, I won't go off on that tangent just yet, but so I started working with this amazing spiritual energy healer. And what's funny is I had a friend give me his name, and I had it like literally in my phone, and I was like, I'll call him when the time is right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if either of y'all were at the talk yesterday, but I shared that I got married this year, and then we separated and went our own ways. And so literally, like, we did as much as we could, and we still very much love each other and support each other. But literally, like, we pulled the plug at the end of July, early August.
Yeah.
And I woke up, and that's the only correlation I can give to, like, when that pain started.
Yeah.
And woke up one day and I was like, what in the hell happened in my hip?
Right.
And the only thing that, like, the movements that bothered me were squatting and happy baby.
Okay.
And I was like, and I don't know if, like, probably many people that listen to this podcast, like, some days you just want to go in and squat heavy and just, like, cool, that's awesome,
Yeah.
and that's a relief. So, like, having that stress relief taken away from me was, like, another thing that I had to, like, wrap my head around.
Yeah.
So anyways, I started working with this energy healer, and I left Los Angeles, and I decided to, like, leave Los Angeles. I think I went to Mexico first.
Okay. So this just got way cooler. I'm digging this energy.
So I went to Mexico. Two of my best chiropractor friends who are, believe in all the hippy dippy stuff, like that John was like, I don't know if I believe it, but I can't explain it.
Yeah.
They got married in Mexico, and I got married in Mexico, literally like 45 minutes away from them, but in April. And so their wedding was in October, sorry. So I was like, I'm going to go to their wedding because I love them, and they've supported me in life so much. And then I'll leave Los Angeles. So it was, like, actually perfect timing. Went to Mexico, recharged in the sun, beautiful wedding ceremony. And then I started driving from Los Angeles to Texas. And I spent a night in Arizona, spent 2 nights in West Texas at Marfa. And this was the first time I talked to this energy healer. And it was in Marfa on the new moon, and that's literally like 4 weeks ago. And he's talking to me about releasing my ex and releasing the identity I have with him in our life and the expectations I have around it, and calling in my new desires, or my desires that have been there apparently forever.
Right.
And what's crazy to me is, like, yes, I've believed in that stuff, and that stuff that I would work through with, like, clients and patients. And, if your low back isn't feeling better, what are you hanging on to? Like, do you have any secrets or financial instabilities going on?
Yeah.
But it was like, I had to work with him, and he had to pull this out. And this dude didn't even know. He was like, are you having left hip pain? And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even say that to you, So it's been the wildest journey. And literally, when I got to Austin, it was like a week later, settled into my place. And, since then I had been sleeping like 7, 8, 9 hours a night. And I'm used to waking up at like 5:30 a.m., like charging. But my body was like, nope, you're sleeping till 7 a.m. every day. I literally have just been like hibernating and recovering. And this past week was the first week that I squatted with no pain. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I've done energy work. I've done, the mornings have been dedicated to, I would call it my spiritual practice.
Yeah. So what is that? Because I have a morning routine.
Yeah.
You can see I'm wearing my beads.
Yeah, I like that.
What is your morning routine?
Yeah.
I know I'm starting to see a trend. It's not all, but a lot of people that are kind of carving their way are either early risers or they have like a very dedicated morning routine, because I think it starts your day out. I mean, for me, it allows me quiet. It allows me to, because I get up at 4:30. So it allows me, by 7 o'clock, I've already gotten my workout in. I've gotten my, my morning rituals and readings over and things like that. So all the stuff that I used to like put off until the end of the day, like I'll get to it. Well, I wasn't taking care of myself. So I put myself as a priority, right? Yeah. I started doing my work first thing in the morning. Yeah. And then I think, even going to the coffee shop, I'm a little bit happier. Yeah. And when I see the person, I have a better engagement. So what's yours look like?
Yeah, I agree 100%. You gotta fill your cup first. Yeah. I've always been a morning person. Mm-hmm. Like even growing up with my real dad, I would sneak outside and have coffee with him. Yeah. And, at that
Mine was cigarettes, but it wasn't my dad, it was my grandfather. Come outside and smoke. Yeah,
my real dad would go outside and smoke a cigarette and coffee in the morning. And I just wanted to be around him, so he would give me a little coffee. I'm like, ooh, this tastes funny. Yeah. And then when my parents separated, my mom remarried my stepdad, it was the same. Like I wanted that special quiet time. Mm-hmm. And looking back now, I saw how much they got out of it. Right. Yeah.
So how old were you when they separated?
I was almost in kindergarten.
Did that impact you much?
Oh yeah.
Did it?
Yeah.
Probably more than you even know.
Now as an adult, I say that with quotations. Right. I see where the significance has been in my life. Mm-hmm. But I'm so lucky because Steve, my stepdad, is somebody that entered my life when I went to middle school, and like such crucial years. Like
I've got a son that's in sixth grade right now, and it's
middle school. It's crazy. But like he was the one that was like there present during those like crazy years, and then also, he was one of the people that I called when I was like, "Hey, I think I'm moving to Austin." He was like, "Cool." Didn't ask questions. Was like, "Do you want me to meet you halfway and we can drive together?" And I was like, "Sure." And then, when I stayed in West Texas, he did his thing. Right. I did my thing and then kept driving. But yeah, so the morning routine's like kind of always been there. And I realized how important it was when I lived in Los Angeles, you're on, Pacific Standard Time. And then the East Coast is like 3 hours ahead. So when BIRTHFIT kind of exploded, and I say exploded, grew like more than I could imagine in the last like 3 years, we started having regular meetings. And they wanted these meetings at 9 a.m. And so 9 a.m. meant 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I was like, oh yeah, I'm already up. That makes sense. But then I started, like, after about 6 months of that, I was like, I'm getting crushed. Like those days where we have meetings at 9 a.m., it's like exactly what you said. It's like you get to the end of the day and you realize you haven't put anything in your cup. Yeah. So I was like, no meetings like this. Yeah. This is brutal. Like, I want my mornings so I can wake up, have coffee, and I sit there and reflect, journal, read, and then I'll move. And like 10 to 20 minutes, like that's minimum. And it's whatever flow comes up for me. Right. Could be more yoga-ish, could be more like human animal type movements, could be anything, like maybe yin yoga, just laying in a few poses. And then those are the things I do for sure, and meditate. Right. So I started meditating probably about 5 years ago. And then when my 20-year-old cat passed away in 2017, I stopped. And then in 2018, my friend Light exposed me to Vedic meditation. And so I started doing that. And I've loved that, and it's been so beneficial. But those are the things I have to do in the morning.
Right. Yeah, I think that developing that routine, the one staple that I have, and, because I'm like you, it ebbs and flows. You know,
Yeah.
some days I want to move, some days I want to be still, some days I want to read, some days I want to hear music.
Yeah.
But I always start, like, before the feet even hit the ground, I start trying to identify 5 things that I'm really thankful for from yesterday. And it's simple things like this will be one right here. You know, the fact that we're doing a podcast, my friend Ingrid is here, I'm in a great city, like all of that is one. Yeah. You know, and then I met a guy at the Native this morning, total stranger. Yeah. And I just said, hey man, how you doing? Because he was, you know, having a mimosa and he was just sitting there by himself. So 2 guys striking up conversation. Fascinating guy. Yeah. So if I hadn't opened my big mouth, I would have never gotten that experience with him. And so I do the 5 things, and then I commit to learning something outside my wheelhouse. It might be a National Geographic article. It might be a video about something that's kind of on my peripheral, but it doesn't have to be this earth-shattering revelation. It just needs to be something that's it's not something I would typically find. Yeah. And then the last thing is I have to do something kind for a total stranger. You know, whether it's holding a door, buying coffee for the person behind me in line, it can't be something that I expect gratitude in, or not. I expect something back. Yeah. Because my hope is that as a stranger, I give and they just keep walking by, you know? And I feel like if you start with those 3 things every day, reflect, learn, and pass on, it's pretty hard to have a bad 24 hours, you know, when you start around. Yeah. So I start with that, and then I do train in the morning. So before I train, a lot of times I'll just do some movement stuff, and I kind of do my meditation as I move. Yeah. I picked up yoga this year, which is it's a stretch to call it yoga. No pun intended. It's a stretch to call what I do yoga. But that was helpful in a lot of ways because, again, it was one of these situations I identified it very feminine, you know, and very, that's not for big, strong guys, you know? So it was a challenge to me, again, to get outside that comfort zone. And why am I afraid of this? Right. Why do I think that this is weak? Because 7 minutes into this thing, my triceps were just trembling and my hands were like, and I've encouraged so many guys to try it. Every single one without fail that's done it has been thankful for it. You know, like they enjoyed it. Yeah. So I think this ritual thing in the morning, I get pretty grumpy when I miss it. Oh, me too. Yeah. I feel like I'm off all day. Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm on my right, vibration. So I'm picking up a pretty cool vibe from you about you have this very clinical side, you know, like the book smarts and all that kind of stuff. But I think you're kind of a seeker, you know, looking things out, trying things out for yourself. At what point do you look at a person and say you're healed? You know, from something like, I mean, I don't want to delve into the details of it, but a divorce is it's an impactful, painful process. Right. Do you ever heal from it? You know, because there are things I know as a child, I've looked at it 100 different ways. I've talked about it to 100 different people, but I'm still thinking about it. And I don't know if it ever goes away. Right. I don't know if some of the heartbreak you feel in your life ever goes away. Right. And are there people out there that say, yes, it does? Or I don't know. And that's what I'm looking at is like, what is all this? I'm going to say no. Yeah. I'm going to say it's, there's a quote I really love, and I forgot exactly, but part of the quote says, you know, life or living is a continual arrival process at who you are. And, you know, there's been some, I call them big events in my life, and other people would label them maybe as tragic or trauma. Sure. But I don't call them that. And I started rephrasing things probably about the time, 2005, 2006, when I moved out to Los Angeles. Instead of saying, like, why me, you know, playing the victim role, then I switched it and I was like, the universe did this for me rather than to me. And, you know, there's things like a divorce happens. It's part of life. It sucks, really bad timing, you know? Yeah. But
it's not a bad thing. Like, I don't believe there's good and bad, maybe I don't agree with everybody's behavior,
Right.
But it is what it is, and life goes on. I think when you touched on gratitude, I'll loop this in here. In the last 2 years, so I lost my cat, and then
20-year cat.
The 20-year cat. So if anybody's known me, like, and the shit that I've been through, was my cat Angel, who I think has just like transitioned into a different form and like still with me. And I lost her physically, and then I lost this relationship. And so if you can look at it and be like, oh my God, 2 major losses. But what helped me get through both of those, especially like the initial 4 weeks, was this gratitude practice. And I used this gratitude practice back when I was in a not so positive relationship years ago. And that you could label as something, but we won't get into that. The gratitude practice of just naming 3 things like you're grateful for when you wake up. And, for my cat, I went through and was like, certain things, certain food she likes, the way she would walk around the house. And it's like little things. And then before you know it, like within a week or 2, as you're writing this, you're starting to laugh instead of cry. Yeah. Same thing, like with a relationship there, or losing somebody that was so constant in your life, but it's just, they just show up differently now.
Yeah. I think that's one of the hardest. And I mean, you said that you guys still have a love for one another and things like that. Are you guys still active in each other's lives?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
We just don't live in the same city.
No,
or the same house.
I think it's a hard thing though, to go from a relationship where I think love gets abused, but I think just for the definition of this, whatever love is to you and to your level of understanding, if you love somebody, when they leave, it's going to hurt. And,
for sure.
And to have someone be in your life, multiple years, multiple experiences, 1,000 memories.
And habits. You create habits.
Yeah. And you create a language. Like there's inside jokes and there's all that kind of stuff. And then this person's gone. And, obviously there can be like a loss of life, but a lot of times it's because one or the other was just an asshole. One or the other made mistakes. And sometimes I would say 2 people just failed, right?
Yeah.
Or it just wasn't meant to be.
Right.
But I think that's one of the hardest things for me, is because if I tell someone I love them, and I wrote about this on Instagram not too long ago, if I've ever told someone that I loved them, I still love them a lot.
Yeah.
I've been pretty good with my exes in that I'm able to get to a point like I need the distance.
Yeah.
But then over time, it's like
you need the distance for healing.
Here and there, it's not like we're talking every day, but if I see them, I'm not turning the grocery cart the other direction. It's like an excitement to say hello, but there's no expectation beyond that conversation. How do you think that impacts the body? Do you think you carry that as a negative reminder and it kind of wears you down over time? Because, I tell people you can get some great news and immediately all it is somebody saying a good thing, or like somebody tells you got the promotion or you just won the lottery. Well, your heart's going to race. You're going to start to sweat. So words create a physical response, right? Because of the emotion. I would think then that the dark stuff, the hard stuff, the ugly stuff,
totally,
it's probably just as catastrophic.
Yeah.
Even after it's gone.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, how do you go about, because you are into that kind of mixer world, how do you go about helping? And I know you're not a psychologist, but as a chiropractor, we did the RPR, the reflexive performance reset. And Cal Dietz spoke about sometimes doing the movements, and this woman had a seatbelt mark kind of just like come across her body where she had never told him and he had never asked, but in the process of the treatment, this line comes up, and it was from a pretty terrible accident when she was a child. There was a lot of, I think, a loss of life by one of her parents or a brother or something. And when that came up, then the emotional side came. She just started bawling, crying. So do you see any of that kind of stuff with chiropractic?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And even in the working with women more and more,
Yeah.
as my career evolved, like it turned into like 80-90% females.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. There was a woman that came to me, and she was pregnant, and she had a really traumatic like sexual abuse case. And
that led to the pregnancy, or just
prior?
Okay.
It was within like 10 years of that happening. Same decade, but I didn't know her when that happened. But she couldn't lay face down, because that brought up everything, because that was the position that she was in.
Sure.
And then certain things around touch, like I couldn't touch certain things. And our relationship started literally from like me just touching her, like,
right.
like just super light petting. And eventually, it evolved to where I could put my whole hand on the base of her spine. And like I would just send love and light through my hand that way.
Yeah.
So that's an example, but I'll give a personal example too. Like I mentioned earlier, I was in this it was a negative relationship, very, you would say it's abusive in all sorts of ways, but my body was trying to tell me to get out.
Right.
And my hands started peeling, the palms of my hands, my forearms. And it was during chiropractic school, so I would have to show up to clinic, and then try to use my hands, and the overseeing doc or my colleagues and everybody's just like, "What's going on?" Like, and so I went to an acupuncturist, and they're like, "It's internal." And I was like, "What do you mean?" No, fix it.
Right.
But and there's I forget, I think it's called German New Medicine, but I've only listened to a few of their things on YouTube, but they have an emotional response or reason for everything health related in our body.
I'm going to WebMD it and just start to self-diagnose the shit out of myself.
Look up their video on YouTube. Okay. But they have an explanation for cancers and things like that. Okay. But if you don't clear that stuff out, that's energy, it's going to get stagnant. It's going to hang out somewhere, Right. So one of like the biggest things for grief, like loss, is like actually moving and shaking and getting this stuff out. Right. And I was telling somebody this the other day, like grief is such a funny word for something that can pop out of nowhere.
I did the same thing because I get the double pane glass.
Like pop out of nowhere. And like I'm at, a coffee shop and a song that reminds me of my past relationship comes on. And then all of a sudden I start bawling, and it's like, you can't you have about 10 seconds of warning and before you're like, fuck, my body's going to just go crazy here. Yeah. And then you start bawling and you're like, okay. But then like I realized I have to get up and I have to shake it out and move and just let it pass through me. Yeah. So if you think about that, like any kind of energy, like if there's something that's disturbing your peace right now, whether it's a mother, a father, a past relationship, like revisit it and bring it back to yourself. Like, why is this bothering me? Or why is this why is this person on the internet saying this bothering me? Right. Take it back and figure out what's going on internally for you and the why, and then work around that.
So I think you've kind of demonstrated that you're very open-minded. You've got a wide variety. I mean, if you got into the point where you were shadowing in Africa in the pre-med, like you have a lot of experience with chemistry, biology, things like that. You had those foundation points. So how did all of this transform and evolve into BIRTHFIT? And just tell us a very brief generalization of what it is and what you try to accomplish through it.
Yeah, so the general elevator speech is that we empower and educate women and their families throughout the motherhood transition. Right. And those are empower, especially now, empowerment's such a overused word.
Cliche.
Yeah. and even the word holistic. But for us, we want the mom to have this internal confidence and just self-awareness, self-confidence, like trust in her body and her capabilities and the choices that she makes so that she can be the best mom that she can be in this world.
Right.
And throughout the whole motherhood transition. And so we use the word holistic, like we take a holistic approach. And to us, that means mind, body, and soul.
Right.
It's not just a fitness approach or a nutrition approach. It's like we got to get clear on who we are inside so that we're actually making intentional decisions in the gym, at the supermarket, when we're picking out what kind of diapers we want to have, or in the birth scene, like the birth scenario, like what's the why behind every decision, We
just had this conversation. Honestly, it happened to me about, a professor in my college helped me understand identifying my why I do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
His context was religion. Well, do you believe in God? Yeah. Why? Because I went to church with my mom. Okay. Yeah. How much church did you go to after your mom didn't make you go? How much did you read the Bible? How much did you do these things? And all I realized through that was I was just regurgitating.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't using my words, my thoughts, my beliefs.
Yeah.
I was regurgitating these things. So it became this understanding of why. And I think why gives people purpose, gives people hope, gives people direction.
Absolutely.
Because if your motivation for money, which I think we've all been there,
mm-hmm.
why? Why do I need more money than I'm making right now?
What do you want to do with it?
Because do I need more money or do I need more responsibility so the money that I make goes further?
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's the ugly answer because then you've got to change a behavior,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a very cool approach, understanding the why for these women.
Yeah. And it's just like with anything, like you mentioned, like rediscovering your why. I feel like as we've gotten older, there's a lot of unlearning going on and looking at how we were conditioned and observing that and then discovering, okay,
mm-hmm.
maybe my why isn't the same as my parents,
right.
Or who raised me. And I think that kind of self-discovery is so crucial for, any point in the motherhood transition, but for anybody, and I wish somebody would have done that with me, like in my late teens or my early 20s,
mm-hmm.
I probably would have needed it again, but at least starting to say, hey, Lindsey, like, why are you going out to the bars tonight?
Right.
Well, if there's a good reason and you're okay with the consequences or, then great,
yeah.
Or, why do you want to hook up with this person? Or, is it just for your self-gratification? Because on the other side of it, are you going to leave? This is a great, like, if there's two people, I have a great friend that was talking to me about this. If you want to have a one-night stand, make sure both people are on the same page.
That it is just a one-night stand.
One-night stand, because if you make that choice and you're not clear with that person on the other side,
uh-huh.
and you give them unreal expectations, that's on you too.
Yeah. I think,
it's so powerful.
A friend of mine was doing some stuff regarding polygamy.
Yeah.
And, or polyamorous.
Yeah.
Really, not polygamy isn't. I think people go to a Mormon mindset. Yeah. He's not Mormon. But,
I can tell you that.
But the thing is, he said the only times that his relationships have been messy
mm-hmm.
is when there weren't clearly defined rules in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was just an assumption that things were going to be cool because you're a cool person and I'm a cool guy and like, hey, we're just feeling it out. This is good. But then that leads to, well, what if you catch feelings and I don't?
Right.
And then, but if we have in the beginning this clearly defined set of rules of what our relationship is, you're allowed to change the rules as you go, but it encourages you to reevaluate those rules.
Like constantly reevaluate.
If there's no rules in the beginning
and
then somebody starts trying to make rules or, it just becomes confusion.
Yeah. And I think like that's what we did a great job of saying. This relationship is our own definition of it.
Uh-huh.
And, when it stops enhancing our personal growth, our, thriving in life, and we stop choosing the relationship, let's untangle and support each other before gets ugly.
Do you have to face any of that with the BirthFit stuff? Like maybe a couple had a child unexpectedly, or it was a one-night stand, because there are repercussions, even if you have clearly defined rules. Kid's a curveball. Hey, this is a one-night stand, and then it's not so much.
You just reminded me of one of the births I attended as a doula. This was probably like 3 years ago.
You want a dip? I saw you looking at my dip.
No, I was like, no. Reminds me of my stepdad. This woman came to me. She was in her mid-40s, super successful in Los Angeles, like has her own place, had a one-night stand, got pregnant, and she knew the guy. They were friends, and she was like, What do I do? I want you to be my doula. Need you to be a part of this.
So what's a doula?
So I attend births. I'm the mom and partner, if they're there, support.
So you're there just rooting them on.
Yeah. So the minute they start having contractions or show signs of going into labor, I show up. I'm basically there through the entire labor process.
How exhausting is that for you?
Very. So that's why I have to be so freaking grounded and clear in my energy, and not bring my shit into their birth, but also like show up as the best version of myself. And then when I leave, before and after each birth, this was like kind of off on a tangent, I shower. So it's like a whole like, okay, I'm leaving behind my shit.
You hit the sage.
And then after the birth, I shower and rinse whatever energy came up, and that's their chapter. I honor it. I write about it, and it's, that's it.
So I'm, let's just use the example. I'm a newly expectant mother.
I
hear about BirthFit. I contact you. What happens at that point?
Good question. So there's a number of ways you could go here. The first, I tell people, just listen to our podcast, because that's free. And then check out the blogs, because those are free. You'll gain a ton of information there. And if that's all you want to do, great. The next step would be to either do some of our online programs or meet up with a regional director in person. And the regional directors are the ones that license the BirthFit brand and curriculum. So they're allowed to use the BirthFit name. And we have BirthFit Prenatal Series, which is our version of birth education. We have postpartum series.
I think that's huge, postpartum.
When we started, there was nothing else even remotely close to it in the United States.
Well, that was, and I hate to interrupt you, but that's something that I think people just kind of shrug it off. That was a devastating thing when my son was born. We were young kids, really. 24 and 25. And here you are, and I had a pretty good job. She was a stay-at-home mom. And it's just like, you got your white picket fence and everything's great. And then this postpartum depression, like they talk to you about it. Oh, if you feel depressed or anything, make sure that you stay on top of it, blah, blah, blah. Postpartum is real.
Like, how?
It's like postpartum is real. Like, cool, dude. And then, but then when you're in the throes of it, it's like, I was working 60 to 70 hours a week. Our communication was so scattered at that point. You're coming home. It's like, she takes the baby straight from the tub, hands them to you. She goes and crashes. Hey, did you cook me any food? Oh, there's no. Okay, great. I'll go cook food and I'll hold the baby. And then I'm saying,
and you're exhausted from work.
And I'm saying, oh, she was here all day and she didn't do this. And then that turns into, I can't believe you didn't fix me food.
The assumptions.
And then she feels like I've attacked her because I did not understand as a male that was going to work every day. It's not that it was hard. Like, Bill Burr has a great comedy thing talking about it. He's like, mothering is the hardest job you'll ever have. He's like, let's get serious. It's not physically hard. There's some dude out there making a huge rock into gravel, with a shovel or like with a pickaxe, He's like, it's hard in different ways. But let's not say it's the hardest thing. But I think that was very much my approach. Like, you're at home, you get to watch TV.
It's so common that thought process. At our seminars, I like to show this triangle. And basically this triangle is like a representation of birth. So a woman has to climb this triangle, and she gets her team and they help her climb up this triangle, this mountain. And they go a little bit, and maybe she's now got her midwife or her OB-GYN, maybe she's got her doula, her partner, whoever is helping her get up this mountain. Maybe she falls, has some tough times in the pregnancy or trouble conceiving. Maybe there's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of deal. But when she gets to the top of this mountain, she's the only one that's at that peak, right? Uh-huh. And whether it's a cesarean birth or a vaginal birth or whatever, it's a birth at the top of this mountain. And she's the only one that can literally like reach through this alternate state and bring life into this earth side. And then, so that's going up the mountain. Then we got to come back down. And this is where our society has failed. Like, we've failed moms, by failing to integrate back into society. So instead of like coming slowly back down this mountain and using your team to like say, whoa, come, like, you're okay. We just literally push the woman down this mountain, and she's like rolling head first and like has no idea who she is. Her body is foreign. Her identity is foreign. She's like, I'm not even sexy. He doesn't even love me anymore. I got to keep this human alive. Yeah. Where's my purpose in life? I thought I was a career woman. This isn't working out anymore. And we just push them face first down this mountain and, expect them to be okay and say, cool, great job having a baby,
Well, it's funny you talked about the mountain and this exact, Ingrid, did you hear that? Okay. It's the mountain talk I give about. Oh, yeah. So as athletes, as special operators in the military, as business people, even students, let's just get it to that side. All we're taught is the climb.
Yeah.
Nobody sits down with an athlete and says, you know what, LeBron James, one day you're not going to have basketball. Yeah. You're going to have all the money in the world. You're going to have everything that you need materially that you want, but you're not going to be the guy that gets that 25,000 people roaring every time you walk on the court. For the soldier, you're not going to be at the point ever again in your life where somebody needs you to be at your best at that level, or people die for the rest of your life.
Like to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started talking to her about it, and it's really more her thing. But I had 16 knee surgeries. So I've really had to go through this myself, because the day that I fell, I was ranked number 1. And so it was
a definite fall.
Yeah. And it was so much more because I was very inclined to say to myself that the ends are going to make up for all the failed on the means, So it's just like, I just wanted to keep climbing, because even in my recovery process, okay, I'm at 400 pounds on my squat. If I can just hurry up and get back to 800 plus, then I'm okay again. Yeah. Like I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got back to those bigger numbers, 800 plus deadlift, 600 pound bench, things like that. And I was more unhappy than ever. Right. And then I've always loved Everest, always been fascinated with Everest. Do you know where 85% people that have died on Everest are dying?
On the
downside. So, and here's this moment, and I wrote about it also from the context of this guy, a broken man. I'll find it for you when we get done here. But it's this guy who's on his 3rd marriage. He's got 5 kids he doesn't know. He's got all these things, and he's climbed every mountain but Everest. And he's been there, and he's gotten close, and he's failed, and he's gotten close, and he's failed. And he has this point where he's right near the top, 100 yards from the top or so, oxygen low, sun's going down, wind's picking up. I can see it. And I've lost all that to touch that right there. And he still believes that when he touches that, all those people back home are going to go, it makes sense now. Yeah. Now I get it. Yeah. But it doesn't. And what this guy does is, in the hope to make it make sense, he touches the top, but never gets to tell the story of coming down. I think that is so many of us. Yeah. It's the story of Icarus over and over and over. Yeah. You have these beautiful wings, and it feels so good, and you just want to keep going. You want to keep going, but nobody's there to catch you when you fall. Yeah. And I think that put postpartum into a wheelhouse that I fully understand. It's like, oh, you're so wonderful. And then the focus comes to the kid, right?
It's all on the kid.
Yeah, I want to hold the kid.
Forget about your marriage or relationship or whatever.
Well, mom comes over. She doesn't want to hug you.
Yeah.
Go take a shower. I've got, instead of sitting down, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, let's have a cup.
Do you want to talk about anything?
Yeah.
What's coming up for you?
Yeah. So we're running close to the time here. I do want to be good with that, but this has been really interesting. What I'm finding is an hour is never enough. So, so the BIRTHFIT stuff is really great. And when we post this, I'll link a lot of stuff for you. So here's some questions that I try to change them up. So if somebody hears our podcast, they don't know what to expect, but are you happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting, especially with like big transition in my life this year, is like the reaction that Brad Snyder talked about this, whenever he was going through his surgeries and the blindness, and, my transition has nothing compared to his, but like the reaction that other people give you, like, I'm so sorry. You must be so devastated. And I literally have to put my hand on some people and say, I'm actually really great. Yeah. I'm living my best life. Yeah. Like, I'm good, Yeah. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm loving life. And
do you like the person that you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm proud.
Right.
Like, proud of that. And it's funny, you told me the name of this podcast, Legendary.
Be Legendary.
Be Legendary.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that always comes up for me is like, be a living legend. Mm-hmm. Like, if I find somebody and I cross paths, like John Welborn, living legend, like he's trying to share his knowledge and circle with the rest of the world, So I think if I were to die today, my service and the light I want to leave on this world is BIRTHFIT, and I would be 100% okay with it.
Very cool. What do you say to somebody who doesn't maybe have the perspective that you've had, who, hasn't searched themselves in the way that you have? Is there a course of action that you would lay out to somebody that comes to you and says, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I can't give you a certain specific thing that happened to me. I just don't feel good anymore. Mm-hmm. How would you encourage someone to follow the path that you have? Is it just a curiosity, like an excitement for life, or did it stem from a sadness or from a traumatic experience? Because I think there's both. There's the curious wanderer that just goes out and searches life at 100 miles an hour. Yeah. And then I think there's a person that has to put themselves back together after 100%. They fall off. So where do you fall into that? And what do you say?
All of those.
You're the mixer. I forgot.
So I've always had this deep trust in the universe that for the bigger picture, the universe and God, like, they've got my back. They got your back. Mm-hmm. It's the greater good. There may be some like troughs and some valleys that are a bit dark, but that's where like seeds are planted in the darkness. That's like when you plant seeds, the flower doesn't grow immediately. It takes time. When you conceive a baby, it's not born then. It takes 40 weeks. Yeah. So a lot happens in the darkness. And I would say, so much of our world is like, feel positive, be good, do this, but also like, it's okay to feel shitty sometimes. Yeah. It's okay to be depressed, but be in action, discover your values, discover what makes you tick. And that may take some writing, that may take some soul searching, but be in constant action around that and just like have this trust that God and the universe has got your back, no matter what. Yeah. So do you, are you into music at all? Yeah.
Who's your favorite musician right now? Who are you listening to right now?
Who am I listening to right now? Well, okay, I just went to a Gary Clark Jr. concert.
I love Gary Clark Jr.
It's fantastic.
Bright Lights. Listen, the first time I heard that song, I call it my snarl face, because like when I hear good music, I like just start snarling. The lip goes up and you just got to start beating it. I love him. He's fantastic.
He owns Antone's in Austin.
Oh, wow.
So like if you want good live music, that's the place. And sometimes he'll pop up. Like,
I think that's where we're going to try to go tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I just think that music is healing. And people, I'm a sad country song guy. Okay. But, somebody asked me the other day about why I like a lot of these sad, heavy, like burdensome songs is because happiness to me, I've never heard someone say, you know, I'm as happy as I could possibly ever be.
Yeah.
But sadness, you can think you've hit bottom and the floor can fall right out from underneath you.
It could be worse.
So sadness is an abyss to me. It's a feeling so much stronger than the positive, like the upbeat type music.
Yeah.
And I don't think people say, man, I had a really great day. Let me write this awesome, great day song.
Except Pharrell.
yeah, you know, but, right. Or Bruno Mars or somebody.
Yeah.
But I think the sadness, you get a real truth out of people.
It's like depth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a reflection. So, yeah, I'm a sad country guy.
Do you listen to Ryan Bingham?
Yeah, I've seen Ryan Bingham twice.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's pretty heavy.
Yeah, talk about some
Before you leave,
darkness.
I got a couple of songs for you to listen to.
All right.
If you like Ryan Bingham.
Yeah, he's having a music festival.
Yeah. I'm coming down here for Willie and Tyler Childers in April.
I love Willie too.
Yeah.
But this is kind of ironic in the universe working in a divine way. Like Ryan Bingham's like one of my favorite singers, and seen him a handful of times. And the day after my cat passed away, so I was like her death doula, and we played music in the house. She transitioned. It was beautiful. It was honestly a beautiful experience. But then I walked, and I was like just aimlessly walking. So this was the very next day. Walked to a coffee shop.
Yep.
Ryan Bingham was there.
Yeah.
Never met him, but I've been to all his shows, listened to all his music, and I'm just like, and you know, my eyes are swollen from crying, and I just go up to him and I'm like, just flubbering all over the place. I just love your music, and then I start crying, and my cat died, and I'm like, wow, I just said my cat died out loud, and he's like, hey, it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Like the nicest guy. The nicest guy. He probably still thinks I'm that crazy cat lady, but
that's fine. Wear it with pride.
Yeah.
Okay. Last two questions. If you could have this opportunity that we've just had right here, an hour with anyone, past, present, I don't really think you can add future to that equation, but past or present, you know, who would you want to sit down with and why?
You know, if I could get the opportunity, I don't know names, but like some Black granny midwives from the South, it would be really awesome to pick their brains because they basically were the original baby deliverers of the U.S.
Yeah.
So that would be one for sure. You know, another one I think would... This is just me. My personal one is like, I really want to pick like Jay-Z's brain. Yeah. Like him for sure. Like I'm a big Jay-Z fan. And like Johnny Cash, like speaking of music stuff. But it would also be awesome to like have my grandma, like who I didn't get a chance to have this kind of conversation with, you know?
Yeah. That's a big kick I've been on too, is removing the roles and titles from people. You know, I told you I had a lot of time between loving exchange with my parents. You know, there's 5 years there that it was pretty bad. Yeah. And I don't know if it was the fact that we all just got a little bit older or if it was the fact that I left as their son and I came back as a broken man. And I was able to see my dad as who he is as a man and as a person. And I could see my mom as a woman, not as my mother.
Like human.
Yeah, we could have conversation and there wasn't, because I feel like a lot of times, and Joe Rogan talked about it, is the momentum of things. So if the momentum of your relationship has always been slamming doors and fighting, it's very difficult to come back and have, hey, let's have coffee. Everything's great.
Let's talk about it without raising our voices.
Yeah. And then as soon as somebody like crosses that line, well, you didn't take the trash out 3 weeks ago and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. So we're victims of that. Yeah. But I think the time away, just let some of that little stuff go away and be like, I just miss my fucking parents. Yeah. You know?
It's healing. Time is healing.
Yeah. So, all right. So that was a good one. The last one is, and I am going to double up on this one because it was an interesting response from Adam. If you had unlimited resources, unlimited time, unlimited ability, and you had to wind that down into what a perfect day would look like. Like, mine was revolving around my family, going on a trip, having this particular meal, having this particular music, these sounds, these smells, these feelings. But I absolutely wanted my family there. And 5 years ago, I would have said, I want this much money in the bank, and I want this, and I want that. And I was really proud of myself when I got to the point where it's people that are my wealth. But I'm not going to tell you the city. I'm not going to tell you the food. I just want to hear what you like. If you had a perfect day, who would you spend it with? Who would you spend it with, and where would you go? What would you do?
Damn. That's wild. I have some favorite places. Like I love Brooklyn. Yep. I love Todos Santos, Mexico. Yep. I love Prague. Yep. Love Austin, Barcelona. Like those are some of my top ones.
I'll show you. That was my city.
Yeah.
Barcelona. Yeah.
Like if I could pop into each of those, and maybe it'd be a week. But since and especially in the last since August, and I've been to New York probably 4 times since August, and then moved to Austin. And my days are so unknown. Yeah. And it's so magical waking up and at least having that ritual in the morning. But then some of the days, I had an amazing day last week where I woke up, and by the end of the day, I was having dinner with somebody new that I had not even had a concept that existed that morning. And it was the most perfect day ever. So I think being open to the possibility of that, but I do have being open to the possibility of just the magic happening in life. Yeah.
So go to Disney World. It's where the magic happens.
No, not Disney World. That would not be my favorite place. But it would have to involve connection, human connection, good food, good conversation, and I love walking.
Did you hear mine? Because that's basically what I said.
Tapas, good wine, good tequila, good mezcal, something like that. Yeah. And just that human to human connection is so key. Yeah. So I've had some pretty magical days that have involved that. Yeah. And that's what makes me happy.
Probably the most pat myself on the back kind of compliment I ever got was somebody said, when I'm with you, I never have any idea of what's going to happen. Yeah. But I've never had a bad time.
That's awesome.
So it's that's pretty cool. Yeah. If that's the way that somebody, when they're talking about you, it's you never know what you're going to get. Yeah. But I've never had a bad time, so I'm pretty happy with that. And really, I'm really happy that you sat down here and had this conversation.
Yeah, so, I'm grateful to be here.
Look at this. That's my life. I
lose track of time all the time.
I had 55 text messages. So anyway, listen, tell us where we can find you on Instagram.
BIRTHFIT. BIRTHFIT, and then Lindsey _K _Mathews. That's my personal one.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say before you get off here?
I just really appreciate guys, gentlemen like you that are curious around women's health, the birth process. And
well, I can tell you without being curious, it wasn't a very fun ride.
But you're leading from the front.
Try to.
I think that's what's going to change and evolve, our whole country, our society, everything.
I hope that we get to a point, and this may be an ignorant statement, but I hope that we get to a point where the first point of conversation is not male, female, masculine, feminine. It's human.
Human to human.
And I look down here, and just some situations that I've been talking about a lot of addiction and things like that with different people, we're all addicts to something. Yeah. We're all broken from something. We're all
we don't have it figured out.
And the other thing that I do not want to open this black hole, but we all, too often, people point the finger, but if you peeled back a few layers and let out some secrets, you sure as hell don't want those secrets to get out.
Yeah.
So we all have this vulnerability, and we all carry that weight with us. I just wonder why we're so damn hard on each other, you know?
Yeah.
And why we put so much effort and energy to that when it would be just as easy and probably less effort and energy to say, you doing all right? Can I help you out?
Yeah.
You know?
How can I support you today?
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. I mean, I'm 100% sure that I am here today because of a conversation that we had in Nashville 2 years ago.
Oh.
You know, Ingrid, we had seen each other, and it was just kind of like one of those times where I was really in a bad place.
Yeah.
And she was standing there with hair 8.5 feet wide.
Yeah.
And, she just came over and was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And,
looked like sunshine.
Well, like so many times, you're just waiting for somebody to ask that question and the floodgates open.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I think I was probably more honest with her about how I was doing than I had been with myself.
Yeah.
And I think that started the ball rolling. And I do not know where I would be had she not asked that question. Because that was, I mean,
yeah,
it was,
isn't it powerful how, like, you don't think that you're affecting somebody else's life,
right,
or that you have that kind of intense or level of
right,
showing up in their life. But like Ingrid probably didn't realize what kind of effect she was having on you until after, like, maybe y'all
and sometimes I think those are the
Yeah.
strongest effects.
So it's so powerful.
So
like you actually saying the barista's name, or saying thank you. Maybe they had a really shitty morning and were thinking about suicide, and you like actually acknowledge them, and holy hell, or bought somebody's coffee, and you just turned their day around.
For sure,
you made them feel some type of way, and that's awesome.
Well, hopefully through this podcast we can turn some people around and we can shed some light on some things. So as I said with Adam, this is definitely going to be part one of a series because we got so much more to talk about, but we just got started. And I'll tell you what, it was an absolute pleasure, and I'm sorry for taking you over time.
You're totally fine.
But this was really good, and I hope it starts the process of people asking the right questions.
Yeah.
So with
Thank you.
it's been an awesome one.
Yeah.
As always, stay strong, love yourself, love somebody, and be legendary.
Mm.